Blizzard just announced our dream WoW feature. That's right, guys. I don't know what this is. A new end game. All right, let's see what this video is here from Bellular and how Blizzard just dropped the best end game WoW feature ever. Okay, let's check it out.
Welcome back to the Warcraft News. We have a stack to talk about today because it's finally happening. Blizzard are building a real bridge to WoW's real endgame. And I'd go as far as saying that
he's talking about flex mythic rating. Man, it's a great thing. I do love this. I've talked so much about mythic rating and its lost potential and how Blizzard could do so much better with mythic rating. By better, I mean just making it more accessible. I'm not saying make it easy. You don't have to make mythic rating easy. It's the final end game of the game. It's supposed to be like the hard mode version of these raids, which is completely fine to have content like that in the game. But right now, with fucking lockouts and the way they work, really pug rating mythic, no matter what point you are, even if you're the final day of the final patch of an expansion where really this shit should just be something you could pick up and do easily, you can't fucking pug it. Because people have lockouts, and people are afraid of lockouts. Lockouts ruin shit with guilds. If you're committed to a guild, you can't run it with a pug. And I've said it for a long time. Once the Race to World first ends, and even your top 100 guilds ends, can you just fucking remove the lockout? Just let people play this shit? Let people try to pug it? Yes, the pugs are going to eat shit on a lot of these bosses. They're very mechanically intense. But if you just remove the lockout, you'll allow people who actually do this shit with guilds to participate in these pugs because they won't be afraid of a lockout, and you'll have people doing it. This flexible rating stuff is a good step in the right direction, but I still think you got to get rid of the lockout to really make this thing accessible.
across patch 1205 and 1207, they're hoping to start a new era of how we play. An era where you and I are much more likely to play WoW's best content, Mythic. That may sound a bit scary. I think their plan's really cool. So let's talk about how they're going to make it happen and all the other little bits of news that have accrued over the last week.
Yeah.
The new era then. So, raid size and difficulty have always been controversial. Trust me, I've literally played since pretty much the beginning. You see, every expansion used to change things drastically. We've had 40-man raids, 10-man raids, 25-man raids, and even back in, say, Wrath of the Lich King, 10 basically was easy mode, where 25 would kind of be the harder mode. It's really been...
Brad streaming, thank you for the Prime, man. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. 24 months being a Death Knight. Jesus, unbelievable. Thank you. I was going to say, yes, the different raid sizes used to affect difficulty. There's some weird times in WoW in terms of rating. But you know one thing I wish that we could get back? Give me a 40, man. Can I just have complete chaos? Even if it's just like a one-boss raid, that's fine. We were getting one-boss raids back. This Mythic Flex thing is part of a one-boss raid. I would love to see. Give me a fully chaotic 40-man one-boss raid. Yes, the mechanics can't be that crazy because you got 40 people fucking flying around. It could be just like a Ragnaros level difficulty. But I would just love to see 40-man raids again. I don't know, something about just having all 40 people standing there in front of the boss. It just brings some nostalgia back for me.
Confusing. But they started codifying things in Cataclysm, where they did 10 and 25 with shared lockouts. That basically gave us years of only having normal and heroic. But as time went on, things began to evolve. We had a few really cool optional hard mode boss triggers, saying...
Disgusting classic slot 40-mans. You barely fill a 30-man. Well, I barely fill a 30-man because everyone could just go do a 15 or something, or 14, you know, whatever they want to do, or 20-man. But if 40 is allowed, no, I could fill a 40. I mean, maybe that's a streamer thing, but I could easily fill a 40. Usually we get to 30 and I still have people in queue. So I think it could be done. I just think it would be fun. I'm not saying on a competitive side, make it a 40-man raid. That shit would be crazy. But I don't know. There's something cool about 40 fucking people standing in front of a dragon. Man, call me a nostalgic lover. I have no idea. But I always thought that was cool.
The likes of Ulduar. Then, after that, we had normal and heroic. Then, LFR, normal and heroic. But everything changed whenever Flex came along. You see, Flex was a mode made for the Siege of Orgrimmar raid that was easier than normal, but harder than LFR, and scaled between 10 and 25 players. Its idea was simple. Let people play the game, and if someone in your team doesn't show up, say in your 25-man guild, that's fine. The raid can go on. A 10-man guild could bring players who would otherwise have to sit on the bench. That's what my guild at the time really benefited from with those changes. And it's safe to say that Flex worked, because it took Normal's place entirely. Normal was then renamed Heroic, and Heroic was renamed Mythic. And basically everything below Mythic was made to scale, with Mythic being the thing that did not scale.
Right.
And after a whole lot of fighting over what was the best raid size, Mythic ended up being set at a fixed 20 players. That all kicked off in Warlords of Draenor, and that setup is still around today.
I think even for Heroic, I mean, we typically go with 20 players, don't we? We'd usually do the 2, 4, 14. That's like the typical layout, and that's a typical Mythic layout, so I think most people just find it to be comfortable. That does usually feel like the best layout for any of these boss fights. Some boss fights till this day, though, still they work better with a bigger group. Some are a little bit better with a smaller group. But for the most part, it does feel like with Heroic, you can really go in there with any size and get the job done.
Pretty much 11
Size
years,
doesn't
12
matter
years later.
for Heroic.
But in patch 1207, we are finally getting another change to the raid system. In an interview with Max of Liquid, Blizzard designers announced the upcoming one-boss raid, Sporefall, is going to scale between 15 and 25 players on Mythic difficulty. And what that means is Mythic Flex is finally real. Now, obviously, this is a test. They're not committing to it for the entire future. They want to see, though, if raid size really is the problem. And by problem, I quite simply mean that there's many guilds like, say, mine. We tend to raid with like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people. If we wanted to start doing mythics, which quite a few of us do actually want to do, we would need to recruit way more players. But with Mythic Flex, all we need to do is hit 15 players. Blizzard's...
You still need 15 people, though, to be willing to have their lockout with you. That's why it makes it unpuggable, and that's why I think removing the lockout is the true end game opener. And like I said, they don't have to... Obviously, you want a lockout for Race to World First and stuff like that. I think for all the competitive achievements early on that happen, they're done within like the first week or two. Like all that shit fills out, everything's done, cutting edge, all that shit's done, and then you could just unlock it. Just unlock it and let the masses jump into Mythic Raid and see what they can do.
Big test, then, is that once this feature gets enabled, will more guilds, like say the one that I'm in, step up to Mythic now that this roster can be a bit more flexible? Now, in the interview, lead game designer Taylor Sanders also told Max that they're aware of how hard it is to transition to Mythic from Heroic.
It's a big step, yeah.
And basically, they're running this one boss as an experiment, where it'll be Flex for Sporefall only, basically just to see if letting Heroic guilds taste some Mythic works out. Sadly, though, it is an early thing, and that actually means there's zero chance that we'll get Mythic Flex for the 12.1 raid. That's unfortunate, but I'm not going to bust Blizzard's balls on it, because 1201 is right after 1207, and there's no point in rushing the findings of their experiment. But what I do think is...
We've learned what rushing shit out does, yeah. This last patch, the brokenness of it all, unbelievable.
It's an insanely good experiment. It basically has
Don't
my
rush
whole
Blizzard,
guild
please.
excited. I've heard similar from way more people that I've talked about. And so, if this paves the way for a more accessible Mythic, by which I mean one that you can step into and access because the roster requirements are not as fixed, then hopefully that properly rock-hard difficulty will be open to more people. You know what? I think we may be some of those people.
What now?
Heroic Lura is some of the most fun I've had in World of Warcraft, probably since Heroic Razagath. And that's because, unlike end bosses of the last, most of the last patches, Lura is actually hard. Hard in a way that your Sarkareths and your Pharax and your War Within end bosses, even Dimensius, weren't. So if...
Yeah, she's hard, and she doesn't have, weak auras. I think one thing that's people have found with this last season of raiding right now is that weak auras were kind of making fights not fun. That's right. You don't have to think. You just have the weak aura, and some people like that shit. People are complaining. Some people miss the brain dead side of raiding, where the weak aura just told you what to do. He told you where to stand, told you when to go move, when to interrupt. And so not having that shit, I think, has made, and I said this before the expansion, has made the fights more exciting, more engaging, more riveting. Yeah, I think I've enjoyed the fights. I think the raid right now is a fun raid. We had her down to 13%. That's painful. That's painful. Yeah, but a lot of the raid right now, I think it's just better without add-ons.
This works out. It will be a massive boon for World of Warcraft. And the big reason why is that their encounters are quite simply some of the best. Time I talked about Lura. So Lura is one of the best bosses of all time. Yeah, I really do think that. I mean, it might be one of the most mechanically intense fights that we've faced together as a guild.
That symbol thing is tough.
Maybe it's not the hardest, but it's definitely one of the most fun. One of the most fun in my memory. Definitely tops the likes of Lei Shen, who has existed in my top tier of bosses for a very long time indeed. I think it was also WoW game director Ian Hazacostas' favorite raid boss for at least quite a bit of time. But anyway, it is clear via the likes of Lura that WoW's encounter designers have massively leveled up in recent years. I mean, the personal...
Arcanimus, you said the hardest mechanic is the symbol thing, and that's what he keeps showing on the screen. Previously, that mechanic would have just been a weak aura. We all know that. And now there's people making like these macros and shit to try to get past it. But we all know it would have been, hey, download this weak aura. Literally, the weak aura would have displayed the order like on your fucking screen. And that would have been how people did the mechanic. And it would have never been talked about again. Probably would have been considered to be the easiest mechanic in the fight. So without the weak aura requiring the communication, I mean, we were yelling this shit out when we were doing it. Everyone was getting in the right positions. It was exciting, especially when we were getting it right. Yeah, it was a fun moment to actually overcome that mechanic. And everyone was experiencing the same thing with that. No weak auras.
Responsibility stuff in the Lura fight is insane, in a good way. Dodging glaives, placing runes, and managing the crystals makes the entire fight an engaging cooperative experience for almost everyone. It feels amazing. And it's a fight that every player has got to contribute to, instead of just the raid leader figuring out a strategy and issuing orders to people.
Right.
And it really is good in the details. The intermissions dodges are super tight. Aiming the beams at the cores in Phase 2 takes precision, not just standing on the random marker that your raid leader dropped for you. It is so much fun that it has single-handedly lit a fire under our whole guild. And not just Lura, because Illyria and Beleren were amazing fights as well. Raiding in WoW is genuinely some of the best that it's ever been,
fun.
At least for us, and that makes us want to progress to Mythic.
Even the tic-tac-toe thing, you guys remember with the first boss, like it took us a second couple pulls to figure that shit out. It's been like an investigation, figuring these fights out, figuring out good strats, and then doing them. Why is it always the worst players telling everyone weak auras were bad? I don't know. I wouldn't know. I'm not a worst player. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you saying? A couple, yeah, I know. He was a difficult first boss because he had a mechanic that required a lot of tank coordination early on, and we had to figure it out, and we did. We got it down now. Now we'll one-shot that guy every single time on heroic. But early on, yeah, it took some communication. I would say as a tank, these fights are intense. The tank swap for the paladins fight, that shit's crazy. You got to know your shit. Get that right. We've seen plenty of wipes because bad tanking has happened. Not me, of course, but I need a second guy with me a lot of times, and they just can't keep up. So it's been a intense raid, a fun raid, but nothing so difficult that it feels like it makes you angry. It's just like, oh, we can figure this out. We can do this. We just got to do it right.
To rise up to that challenge. But managing 20 people is a complete nightmare. We usually raid with a 13 to 14 person roster, and even then we usually have a few people missing. You know, we're kind of getting old. People are beginning to have families and serious careers, which means work emergencies, late cancellations, life getting in the way. Now, without Flex Heroic, we would pretty much be screwed every season because of the roster problems we'd have if Heroic was fixed 10 or 25 as it was in the past. But we have Flex Heroic. It works, and for us, it has basically saved raiding. And if the Mythic Flex experience works out well, it could actually fix one of the biggest problems in World of Warcraft right now.
This is probably as big of a change. I would say one of the biggest changes that Blizzard recently did to raiding that quote unquote saved raiding was cross-faction raiding. Especially if you were an Alliance player, I mean, raiding got so bad during Shadowlands at one point that if you played the Alliance, you essentially gave up on raiding. You're not going to get a raid. You're just not. It's not going to happen. There's just not enough people raiding on the Alliance anymore. It got really bad, especially depending on like what server pond you were in and all that shit. It was tough. And then when they unleashed, I still remember that day that they opened up cross-faction raiding. There were some bugs, of course. It's a fucking patch. It's what Blizzard does. But when they opened up cross-faction raiding, oh my God, it completely changed my queue. I saw so many people raiding that I hadn't seen before, and it just opened everything up. It made it far more accessible. And I think it was a much more of a benefit to the Alliance and the Horde at that time, but it was huge. And so this could be the next biggest thing, also making Mythic more accessible.
At least for mid-core guilds like ours. You see, right now, we get Curve in a few weeks, and then we stop raiding because we can't really move up the difficulty anymore. We don't want to expand our roster. Now, some of us stick around, but others just dip for the rest of the season. And it's probably like that in many of your guilds as well.
Yeah.
But if we could progress to Mythic without the logistics of a fixed 20-man roster, we would be sticking around playing WoW for way, way longer.
True.
Long enough to, perhaps, be excited by features like, say, the Void Core. And if Blizzard can get that kind of thing right, then raiding for the entire span of a season, even through both of its minor patches, well, that actually could be a viable thing in a way that for
it'll
guilds
extend
like
the
ours,
content.
it just has not been in years. So I hope this experiment is a success, because the Encounter team and all the people supporting them, like with art, music, sound effects, it's just all coming together incredibly. And it's a shame that only a small percentage of players get to see its most grand version of Mythic. Now, obviously, Flex can be harder to design. You'll run into issues where certain comps just won't work.
Things don't scale properly
without
sometimes.
20 players being fixed, you can't guarantee enough raid buffs and utility for the mechanics. That's the kind of thing they'll have to design around. And honestly, that could, in a few instances, lead to a worse experience or make some designs break. And if 15 people is easier than 25, or vice versa, that could throw a spanner in the works for the competitive players putting together groups. But at least, for guilds like ours, none of that would really matter.
Yeah,
as long as we're
the whole race, and all that other shit with the flex. Okay, I mean, does Blizzard really need to make the game and consider the top 0.01% or 0.1% of players? No, they don't. And honestly, the way they split up rating this season, I think was very nice for the player base. It paced things out better. It made you feel like there was new content always coming around the corner. But to be honest, for the race to world first, it kind of hurt it. To not have the entirety of the raid open up altogether, it was like put a pause on the race to world first and then a resume. But I think that was the right thing for Blizzard to do. To make the game for the 99% of the player base was a good move on their part, believe it or not.
Actually allowed to play, we'll at least give it a try. Recent raids are too fun not to. The problem is, they have, on heroic difficulty, been so easy that they quite simply have not lasted. So it's a good experiment for Blizzard, and you know what? I think it's part of a whole new strategy as well.
More than just raiding.
Raiding's obviously not the only gameplay WoW is pushing these days, and this week's patch is evidence of that. It's adding a new upper tier of Mythic Plus raiding, and what they're doing here is really, really cool. So if you hit 3400 or above, you'll get Keystone Myth, which will get you a Time Lost saddle. You'll then be able to trade that in for some new mount recolors or for an old Keystone Master or Legend mount of your choice.
Yeah.
And it's from a pretty damn long list too. Plus, if you're in the top 1% of Mythic Plus rating in a region, you will get the Umbral Champion title and a new exclusive
Gladiator
mount.
achievement for
Basically,
Mythic.
It's like the Gladiator mount from PvP, but for Mythic Plus.
It's cool.
Pretty awesome. But they're actually doing some other good things as well. They're clearly trying. You see, currently in the game, Mythic Plus 10s are easier than ever before, and they're also
They want full degen Mythic splits. They do, and honestly, it's working. We looked at the statistics, I don't know if he's pulling up that same shit, but we looked at the participation statistics, way up this week, and it was like, because people were preparing to push their IO up, and not only was it way up, people were pushing their key levels up, where typically you see like 90% of the player base just doing plus 10s and dipping the fuck out. We saw people pushing to plus 13s, because really what you're going to need is like 16s to get to that rating. We saw the entire key group, or people who are running keys, expanding, the population expanding up to the number of keys that they're doing. So yeah, it's a great move on Blizzard's part. For one, it keeps participation going for longer in Mythic Plus, considering this is an easier season than previous seasons. I think that's important right now. And it gives the players something exciting to chase. This mount thing is a cool idea on their part.
The cap of what you need to do for gear progression. Problem is, they've ended up being so easy that decently skilled players were just hitting over 2000 rating within the first week, and then just finding that the season hasn't lasted. And that's where I can't help but analyze the situation. And maybe this is just a reaction to this season, but I do think that this change with Mythic Plus rewards,
He's talking about Mythic splits. Yeah, okay, fine.
and of course Mythic Flex, I think those can't be accidents. I think Blizzard are basically trying to divorce some aspects of high-end play from just gear being the only motivator. That's a healthy thing in my book, where instead of gear being the reason that you play, gear is just a stepping stone on your way to those higher level achievements that basically give you some real legit bragging rights. And of course, with the Voidforge, this patch is letting you target the likes of, say, BIS items,
Yeah.
so I think that means we can really see their experiment taking shape. You know, it's all about carrots, and gear was always one of the biggest reasons to play WoW. It was the big carrot.
The main
power
reason.
going up was the
I
thing
would
to
say,
chase.
like, for rewards that make me do content, number one is gear and item level. That's the number one thing. I would say number two is probably mounts. Give me a good fucking mount, and I'm probably going to do the content. And then three would be like transmog. That's probably like the rank of shit. Where like if I want a really cool looking weapon or something and I got to chase that shit, I will. Mount, definitely. And then gear, obviously IO and shit. Of course, I'm going to chase that. And eye level.
I think Blizzard are now experimenting by easing off a little. You may have noticed that getting gear is easier than ever right now, so in a way, they're kind of replacing some of the motivation that gearing used to give you in PvE. The 1% title and 3400 rating mount are, of course, still carrots, but they're very different in their nature. Gear is about character progression and power, but rating and mythic rating, well, those are about mastery. Maybe even just being Mr. Big Balls. They're about bragging rights. And where gearing is about your character getting stronger, those bragging rights type of achievements and true challenges, well, those are about you getting stronger as a player. That, I think, is something that WoW needs to target more. It's why these changes are so damn welcome. But if you're thinking about this with dungeons in mind, you may be thinking, well, this all sounds good, but there's no bloody tanks, and I hate trying to find a group. It absolutely sucks. Yeah, you're right. The good news is Blizzard have
Is he gonna talk about the freaking what's the name? That vision thing that allows you to see tanking paths? Because I think I talked about it so much that I think people got mad at me because this guy's too into this shit. It is the best thing they have done for tanking in forever.
I actually got a response to that.
Yeah, Lindormi.
Lindormi's guidance.
Okay, I did. Okay, it's not a pre-watch. I mean, you know, because I knew he had hinted at it, and that's how I got the idea. That's what he was about to talk about. This is a huge deal, and anybody who doesn't know, no, it's not pre-watched. Okay, cut that shit out. And this is such a big deal because anybody who doesn't know this already, tanking Mythic Plus, one of the scariest things about jumping into tanking is you got to be an expert in the fucking game. Everybody you're like you're the default leader. Let's be honest. You're the default leader. Even if you're not the party leader, everyone's following your lead. So you got to know the tanking path. It's one of the hardest things to kind of get track of. It's something that you don't have to do with any other class or any other spec in the game. But when you're a tank, you got to figure it the fuck out and know the path. Okay. This thing tells you which way to go, which group to pull next, how to move through the dungeon and complete it to 100%. It's awesome. I freaking love it. I was trying it back when it was only up to Keystone 5s. Now it goes through all Keystones. This is such a big deal. This basically removes one of the biggest fear factors of tanking in the game. Now anybody should go try tank. If you were thinking about trying tanking, go try it now. Because now you don't need to know. You can get in there, just be a good tank, and the game will tell you which way to go next. It's an awesome thing. I was very happy when I saw this.
Is being ported to high keys. That's Blizzard's big answer, and this really is something. Now, the new version of it is called Lindormi's Glow, and what it does is it lets tanks enable the mob percent guide for any and all key levels. And what that means is that if you don't want to install MDT or learn a bunch of community routes, you can just run the Lindormi route. Now, it will not be a perfect route for pushing extremely high keys, but
more than
I think it'll have an amazing effect for tanks just doing their weekly 10s. One of the reasons people don't want to jump into Mythic Plus as a tank is, well, if you didn't get in on the ground floor when people were learning the dungeons, you're basically going to feel like your chances of cocking up and ruining the run for everyone else are way too high. You won't want the stress, you won't want the social penalty.
True.
And that's where this is really good, because you can just flick this on, and with it you'll get a route, which basically means you can let the root do the rooting. You can
Yeah,
focus
and
on...
he said like maybe it's not optimal, maybe for like a plus 20. But honestly, when I did it, the 2 times that I used it, it got to like 100%, almost like to the on the dot. I think one of the 2 runs was literally 100%. Maybe the other one was like 102 or something, but it was perfect. It was legit perfect. So like he's downplaying it a little bit, but no, the route is basically what you want to do.
tanking, and basically, I think it's a better, like, learning environment. Now, in the channel before, we've talked about the power of the default effect in World of Warcraft. And I think Blizzard are now starting to understand how to use defaults to kind of shape the behavior they want to see. And in this case, it's genius. Tanking is a massively stressful role because you've got to lead. And worse than that, your DPS will flame you for not doing the fastest route.
That's true.
Starting off as a tank is almost impossible without studying loads of third-party sources. But with Lindormi's Glow, newer or more casual tanks will basically have a fallback option that players are a lot less likely to flame about because it is basically the built-in Blizzard thing. Won't be the fastest, but it'll be safe, it'll be reliable, and I think in the context of a plus 10, that's what most people...
Sam says he hates add-ons, yet Blizzard uses stolen add-ons. Well, I never hated what add-ons gave to the game. I hated for one, I hated the fact that they nullified a lot of the game mechanics, which I thought was dumb, but that was just a weak Horus thing. But overall, like all other add-ons, I thought they were good adds to the game. I just hated the process of you have to go get this add-on because the game is not offering you the feature that it should be offering you out of the box. So of course I want Blizzard to integrate the add-ons into the game. I never wanted them gone forever. I didn't want DPS meters deleted from the game. I said they should be in the game. It's stupid that you have to tell somebody you got to go download this other thing to make this game properly playable. This just seems broken. It's a broken concept. Now Blizzard do it. This is much better. The game's in a good state. Yeah, 12.0.5 had some fucking broken ass shit in it. But the game overall, I think Midnight as an expansion has been good.
We're looking for. So what we see across all these stories is that Blizzard are serious about getting you to play the higher end content in WoW. I think that's smart. And overall what we're seeing is their whole game plan coming together. With Housing, Blizzard made a huge play for the casual audience who just want to hang out instead of getting really sweaty. Or, maybe they want to hang out and get sweaty, but in a little bit of a different private way. Now, no longer in Goldshire. And hell, a whole lot of WoW's recent focus has been on what Holly calls the mid-core audience. And we really see the evidence of that. They've been opening up the middle of the game with the likes of Prey and Delves, I think to great success.
So much good
World content has been massively overhauled, but all the while, Mythic rating and M+ have gotten better and better. They've iterated, but they haven't really changed fundamentally. I guess until now. Until all these things we're talking about, where Blizzard are clearly trying to open the door. Yeah. They're trying to get...
It's at a good spot. I have a brother-in-law who, he was a successful man, doctor. He's living his life. And then, of course, when he met my sister, I told him, look, quit being so fucking proper. Download this game, start playing it, or I'm not going to talk to you anymore. So I got him into WoW, of course. I basically ruined his life. And he started playing in Legion. He's dabbled in every expansion since. He played like a lot of Legion, decent amount of BFA, and then he started to fall off in Shadowlands and War Within and all that. He came back for Midnight. He's bought every expansion, played them a little bit, but he came back for Midnight. This is the first expansion that's totally gotten him back in the game. He said it. He goes, this is the best thing since Legion. Midnight's a great expansion. He's been enjoying it. He's been having fun with it, and I think that's like a common feeling about a lot of players right now. Is like, yeah, this is actually a good expansion. I feel like this is proper WoW again since Legion, first time that a lot of people have been enjoying this shit. Is he a better player than you? That'll be, TBD, okay? I introduced him to the game. Let's calm down about that shit. That's why he's balding? And no, he's not, actually. I'm a WoW dealer. I am a WoW dealer. I did the same thing in high school. I ruined a lot of people's lives in high school because I was dealing WoW around. I was one of the OGs of WoW in my high school. It was 2005 I started playing. And I basically told all my friends, hey, you guys got to go get this game, man. And there were some that didn't. Guess what? They weren't my friends anymore. The ones that did were like lifelong friends. Still talk to them all the time. Yeah, so I dealt WoW around. I was a crazy WoW dealer.
More people into that ecosystem. If they do it right, then those mid-core players could convert into hardcore players. Maybe people like, say, a bunch of the ones I've played WoW with for the last decade. We're the kind of WoW subscriber who does pretty much show up every single patch. That's what Blizzard wants. That's the ideal customer. But what I like most about it is how they're doing this without breaking what works for the dedicated players who have just always been there. I've got to say I love it. And usually changes to a game like WoW are driven by fear or by anxiety, A scared Blizzard, worried about their engagement, would say make raiding an M+ easier. They'd make gearing perhaps take a bit longer, right? To stretch the progression out. And that sort of thing should work. I mean, character progression is the easiest carrot to add, and it's a fairly satisfying one. I mean, just look at any ARPG. They've got endless progression on an endless treadmill. But now, by pushing WoW's higher end of achievements away from the early gearing curve, I think Blizzard are taking a little bit of a stand.
Yes.
The easiest way I can put it is that changes like this speak to a more confident Blizzard, at least from what I can see. A game team that are basically saying, well, we know our game is fun, so let's get the most out of it, instead of one that's left trying to trick players into staying on an infinite gear treadmill. Do you know what? That's an idea that I can get behind. Even if all of this stuff goes to shit and fails, you know what? At least Lura was an awesome boss, and at least I know the encounter design team can cook up more bangers like that. But if this stuff goes well, I think it could be humongous for the long tail of World of Warcraft.
Agreed.
Do you know what? That's the kind of thing that actually plays to the interests of WoW's most dedicated players. Those of us who, I guess, have just been here for the long haul. Sometimes companies can almost come off so focused on new customer acquisition that as an existing customer, you just feel a bit left behind. Here, though, I think they know they've gotten a bunch of new people, but that their next job is to actually turn more of them into mid-core and hardcore players. That can only be healthy for the game. Just about everything that they've talked about and that we've covered in this video is kind of a banger, in my view. So there you go. Go and try to fight Lura if you can, especially in heroic difficulty. It's an awesome boss.
Yeah, it was broken yesterday, though. I don't know if they fixed it, but Lura was fucking killing everybody yesterday. She went on a killing spree after the patch went live.
You'll have fun with it. And if you want a taste of the numbers driving Blizzard's decisions, I have got a video for you. It's one that even dives into what we believe are the actual concurrency numbers for World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that was
relative to other games. It's a very interesting thing, and it'll be the next video that will appear on the little box on the screen. So, thanks for listening, and I'll see you over there.
Yeah, but I agree with everything Bellular said in this video, totally. I'm contractually obligated to agree with him, though, as I react to his content, but it's been great so far. There's been, I know a lot of comments about the bugs in 12.0.5 were happening, and yes, those bugs are unfortunate, but overall, the design philosophy, the direction Blizzard's taken the game, the changes they've made in terms of endgame and everything else, I think they've been great. I think Midnight's been good, the raids have been good, the new content has been good, the new achievements have been good. Overall, I think Midnight has been a pretty damn good expansion. Hopefully they keep the momentum going. Nice video overall from Bellular.